Open Mind podcast, where we feature individuals from all walks of life who discuss authentic living and share tips and advice on their journey to achieving and maintaining it. We stream live every Friday at 9 o'clock a.m., and you can view some of the past episodes on freeandopenmind.com. Hello, I am Hardy Brooklyn. I'm a life and business coach from Brooklyn, New York, and I help individuals who feel something's just not right in their life, how to understand what it is, how we go ahead and create a journey to correct it, so they live a happy, more rewarding, wealthier life. I have with me today a fellow coach and a good solid man from Southwest Australia, Stan Nelson, and he's going to introduce himself and the topic of the day.
G'day, Hardy. Yep, I'm Stan. I'm a moving forward coach from Perth, Western Australia. Now, we've got Valentine's Day coming up. Lots of people, brings lots of excitement. For others, it brings pressure. Because Valentine's Day, it's just not about shining light on love. Sometimes it's all about the expectations that come with it. What should I give? How should I show up? How should I be with someone else? And that's what we're going to talk about today is boundaries and expectations. Not the kind of rigid type, but the kind of, safer, deeper, more sustainable type of boundaries. So let's start with, Hardy, expectations about Valentine's Day.
This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart because between me and my partner, a lot of times we have very different expectations on what to do for Valentine's Day. And again, when we're thinking about setting our Valentine's expectations, the first thing I ask people to go back to when we're in the boundary space is think about your love language. Think about the language that you use to communicate with your partner and how that works. And if you're thinking for something for Valentine's Day that has nothing to do with your partner's love language, my guess is you're setting a bad expectation. But that's your choice and your own journey to go on. What I try to do with my clients and what I try to do with myself is communicate in a way to my partner leading up to Valentine's Day of what I would like to have happen. If I want to have it straight out, I'll be like, hey, honey, this year for Valentine's Day, I want to go to the movies. And after the movies, I'm expecting XYZ to happen. And if you're not comfortable communicating that, or you want to make it more of a surprise, or let the way the evening goes out, ask some kind of limiting questions ahead of time. And also take a look at your relationship over time. So when we're setting our expectations, and a week before Valentine's Day, we talk about wearing skimpy clothes to a party, and everything your partner does is complain, oh, it's -7 degrees outside. It's 14 degrees outside. I don't want to wear heels in the snow. Try to take cues. Try to have like little conversations about the activities and take cues from those conversations. And take cues from how your relationship is. So if you want to have this great romantic Valentine's Day evening where you go have a fancy dinner, you sit down, you have white glove service, then you do, go somewhere after for some kind of like dessert or tapas, and then you end up, having this great romantic evening in a hotel. Except you've been fighting for the last 3 weeks. Make sure those expectations match reality. Like, one of the things I ask people is take a look at yourself. That's like one of the first things I want you to do is open your eyes, take a look at the relationship, and then have those conversations. So I've been asking my wife a couple of little things in like what she'd like to do, would she want to go to see a movie, do you want to see comedy, do you want to see those different things? And by setting my expectation relevant to how she responds to those questions, makes it so that I'm not going to put myself in a situation where A, I'm disappointed, And then it leads to different angry things like, ooh, I'm disappointed that I didn't get what I want, so now I'm going to violate her boundaries. I'm disappointed that I didn't get what I want for Valentine's. You didn't dress sexy enough for me. You wore jeans and a t-shirt to dinner. That's not nice. So now I'm going to be nasty to you all night and then expect sex.
And there can be that pressure too that you get as well, where you're like, maybe I'll get her up to do karaoke, or hey, all my friends are here. Maybe I'll get her up to do jump in the strippers box or something like that. And you're like, uh-oh, you might have just pushed too many boundaries.
Right. So we have to think about what we want to do. And is it important to us to push those boundaries? Well, the first thing I tell people to think about when you're thinking about setting your expectations and pushing people's boundaries and respecting people's boundaries is in most states in the Union, which that's been the United States of America, allowing someone to violate your boundary or to consent to an activity is not allowed to be done under the influence. And that's something that's very important. When you're trying to ask somebody to violate their boundary, blur the line for their boundary, change a boundary, whatever that space is, if they are not of sound mind and sound body, they cannot legally, in the United States of America, make that change. So if you're setting an expectation that you're going to go out to dinner, you're going to get drunk, and you're going to take advantage of this partner, whether it be male or female, you need to make sure that that person is committed and approved and agreed to partaking in these activities before the substances, the alcohol, the drugs, the adrenaline, before all of those other things start happening. Because it's not just the alcohol. It's not just the drugs. If you run a marathon, you're more likely to have your boundaries violated because of the euphoria at the end of the marathon. Because you're in an altered state of mind. The same thing happens when you're in BDSM scenes. When you go into subspace, you're in an altered state of mind. Happens for swimmers and divers alike. You know, you have adrenaline, you're going, all this great energy that can't be touched. I'm on top of the world. But we need to make sure that we understand before we get into that state what our limits are and what our partner's limits are. And agree to what we're going to do before that. Now, that doesn't mean it's a guarantee. I need to put that out there. Consent and violation of boundaries, which is consent, if it's with permission, can be taken away at any time with no reason necessary. Consent can be taken away at any time with no reason necessary. That's why leading up to the event and the holiday of Valentine's Day, we try to make sure that we're only going to pressure our partner to do things that they've agreed to be pressured to, or that have worked in the past without creating negative friction between us. We also have to agree that we're going to set an expectation that we're going to be on our partner's side. We're going to be a partner in the journey. We're going to be willing to have these conversations.
And look, this is important because a friend of mine is a relationship coach, and she says after Valentine's Day, you have to deal with all the fallout that comes. So if you set it up for a big thing that didn't go down, or hey, you violated someone's boundaries and now you feel guilty, or they're not talking to you or something, you have to deal with the consequences afterwards.
And I've made that mistake myself. I've gone out and I've brought my wife to a party that was not something that was within, not necessarily in her boundaries, but inside her comfort zone even. I was like, I work in the industry, might as well show her what it's like. Let's go. Let's go to a sex party. But that's not something that makes my wife comfortable. So now I'm in a situation where, hey, I had an expectation that I'm going to do all the things with my wife that people pay me to do with their partners when I put an event on. So now I'm not just sort of voyeuring or directing. Now I'm trying to participate. And my partner, my wife, was not participating. So I had set an expectation. Oh, if she's there, it's how can anybody not want to do this? In my mind, and in her mind, she had a very different agenda. And what I was able to do was, aside from having my expectations blown away, but being someone in the space, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with having consent taken away, having somebody change their mind at the last minute. I might not be happy about it, but I'm still alive to breathe another day.
And of course, last week we were talking about the five love languages. So sometimes you want to match your love language. If your love language is gift giving, you don't need to go overboard, because their love language might be, words of affirmation or quality time. And we also discussed about, hey, even if you've got quality time, their quality time and your quality time could be two different things.
Yes. So when we're setting our expectations, I now look at my wife and I understand what she wants and what she feels good at. Because about Valentine's Day, yeah, it's about me getting laid. It's about me having a great romantic night. I would love that if that happened every single time. But it's a holiday, and it's more important to maintain your relationship and your communication than to have that fantasy fulfilled, unless you've previously agreed to do that. Like, it is okay to sit down with your wife, your husband, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, and have a discussion, an honest discussion, that you would like to try something that's outside the wheelhouse. You might get shut down, they might say no, but if you ask in advance, pretty much most of the time, whether they say yes, or hell no, or maybe yes, or maybe no, but you've got a pretty good chance. I mean, 50% of the time, there will be potentially some kind of compromise that comes out of it. So now with my wife, when I want to do something different in that space, and I want to make sure that my expectations are set correctly, I basically tell myself that, hey, even on a regular date night, I need to set my expectations. Because there are days where I had the most miserable day in the world, I'm completely drained, and I don't even want to talk to my wife, yet she's all horny and wants to have sex. So I've got an expectation that I'm going to come home, do some bong hits and pass out, and not interact with anyone. But my wife has her love language of quality time, and she's romantic, and typically I'm okay with that. But now there's an imbalance. And I think that every single man needs to experience that imbalance. Because women experience that imbalance day in and day out. But what it's taught me is to have that discussion. So when I come home and I'm the one that's all horny, and it's not because of anything my wife did, it's because I've been out with women at work, I've been getting complimented, the world itself has been praising me. So and that's one of the things that I love to make me horny. And that's part of my love language. So now, how do I set an expectation when I bring that home? That my wife, who's been working all day, slaving over the stove to make dinner, doing chores, doing all this other stuff that didn't put her in the mood to make sure that my expectations are still set properly moving forward. And what do? I tell myself it would be great if all of these things happened, but I don't know what happened behind that door. And a lot of times it's how I present the conversation. So if I ask, "Oh, hey, hon, I had a great day today. You want to have sex?" The answer's probably going to be no. But if I approach that, my expectation in the conversation with her, inside her love language, and hearing what she's saying about her day, and using active listening to communicate back, instead of getting a 99% chance I'm going to get shut down, now I've got a 99% chance I'm going to get accepted. Because it's not always about us. It's about being seen and being heard, because she likes communication. She likes quality time. I'm hearing her love language. I'm seeing her love language. And I'm bringing my expectation into her love language.
And of course, look, I don't know about guys over there. I know guys over here. They all think women go from 0 to 100 and are ready to go. That'll be the guys. Um, my friend would say foreplay doesn't start in the bedroom because, as you said, you don't know what happened for the day. So get up, do the dishes, have a conversation, prep the next step for if you're looking for something to happen, then you have to do the work.
And that's something that Stan just said is really important. Prep the next step. And what that means is you've got an expectation of something, of having some kind of activity, event, whatever type of sex it might be, whatever type of touching, kissing, running, dancing. I don't know what your fetish is or your desire or whatever it might be. If you communicate what your desire is and what your end goal is throughout the process and lead up to it, it's a lot easier to get buy-in. So having those conversations, like, and communicating with your partner in their love language leading up to this activity, makes it a lot easier to get to the yes, let's do it, or the hell yes.
And of course, the big one for Valentine's Day that sometimes can be a lot of pressure is surprises. I'm going to propose to my girlfriend with, you know, 60,000 people watching the basketball or something. And you're like, you might get a yes then, you might also get a no. We've seen a few of those on YouTube and stuff.
So when you're doing those great big blowout surprises, think about what you want to accomplish and think about what your partner's okay with. Because you might get the yes on the Jumbotron and then the cease and desist, the restraining order the next morning. I've seen those too. So we want to think about that. And we want to think about what our partner wants and what our partner is okay with. Because if I did that to my partner, that would be the end. If I got my wife on the Jumbotron for a big kiss or some kind of romantic schmoochy thing, that would be the end of it, because that violates her space and her community in so many ways. I come from a community of public affection. My wife comes from a community of no public affection. So it's differently, and you have to think about that when you're setting your expectations. I'm perfectly okay walking, strolling, crawling, rolling, whatever you want, down Broadway completely naked. How many people out there do you know are okay with that? And if you set your expectation that your partner is going to stroll down Broadway completely naked with you, they're going to do the same thing my wife did. Show up fully dressed and not hear
And
anything.
probably be upset for the next like 3 weeks. So
Right.
there goes the rest of the night.
When we set our expectations without a connection to reality, when we set our expectations without asking before that, we're asking ourselves for stress and uncomfortness. And we don't know how long that's going to last. Because if you do it today and your partner or your wife is holding on to it for 10 years, because it was something you never discussed and you never resolved. I just had a client come to me that was in therapy, and he was talking to his therapist about something, and he was like, "Oh, my wife's pretty mad about that." And I said, "Well, when was the last time you guys talked about it? And when did it happen?" Well, the situation was my client got very drunk when they were camping at a bar and left his wife at the bar and basically walked back to camp without her, in a completely strange place. She was drunk in a place where it wasn't so smart to do that. And she was mad about it for a long time because that was supposed to be their
Oh, I
romantic
bet.
anniversary weekend. And they never talked about it. And then he brings it up in a coaching session because of something that happened in therapy. And this happened when the gentleman was 22 years old. The gentleman is 67 years old.
And you carry that in your relationship. I always tell people it's kind of like carrying a big backpack full of rocks.
Yes. So when you're setting your expectations, think about how many bags of rocks is a good metaphor you want to carry forward in your relationship. And when I think about setting my expectations, I'd like to carry a helium balloon. I'd rather set my expectations or have no expectations at this point in my life than put my partner in a situation or my wife in a situation that contradicts their love language, that contradicts our relationship all along, and that makes them feel not, hell yes, I want to do that.
And don't forget violating boundaries and consent, because you were talking about that as well.
Right. So when I'm getting buy-in and consent for Valentine's Day, I've already had conversations for the past 3 weeks or annoyed, teased, pushed buttons. I've communicated with my partner in ways to know how far I can push their boundaries, how far I can push and still maintain that hell yes consent. Because the second it goes from hell yes to maybe, for most people, the entertainment and enjoyment go from hell yes to maybe. It's not as fun. And now my expectation is not being met. So ask questions, communicate, choose activities that were inside people's boundaries, maybe a little edgy, but still inside the boundary.
Good advice.
Well, hopefully I didn't ramble too long this week. This is a touchy topic for me, as someone that is learned about boundaries late in life and see how much of an impact violating someone's boundaries has on them. It's very important to make sure that you can have those conversations, that you can ask the questions of what your boundaries are, and when you want to violate somebody's boundary, or you want to allow someone to violate your boundary, make sure there's an understanding that that can be taken away at any time, for any reason, with no explanation necessary. This has been a Free and Open Mind podcast. I am Hardy Brooklyn, a life coach from Brooklyn, New York, who helps people live more authentically and figure out what's just not authentic in their life to live a happier and healthier journey. Stan?
And I'm Stan, moving forward from coach from Perth. Have a good week.
Have a great week. Bye.